Okay, we are back. We are getting started on round 3 of this 2016 X-Wing Escalation Tournament.
This one does not have juke, and this.
Okay, we are back. We are getting started on round 3. Sorry, I was just being handed the lists that we're going to be playing with, and honestly, the methods that people are using to write down their escalation lists are a little creative, so we'll do our best in order to make sure that it's all accurate. Um, Now, that being said, we do know who's playing. So we've got Michael P. and Will E. Like we've been saying, this tournament is for the benefit of families of the Dallas police officers that were slain recently. And it's honestly been a really good day, a lot of positive energy going on with the groups, a lot of really good games. It's a shame that we don't get to record all of them because we had some really exciting gameplay happening on some of the other tables. Not that the one that we just casted wasn't blast to watch. So I'm going to start filling things out here while they're getting all their tokens set up, and hopefully I will have it all nice, organized, and accurate by the time they're getting started here. All right, so it was just announced that the time is going to be starting soon and that it's actually going to be a 90-minute round.
Do we have any meat candy left?
We do. We've got plenty. All right. Well, Michael's list, being a scum list, is really heavy on the equipment.
I know you like it. I got me one too. It's actually pretty good.
Means that his side of the board is going to be a little stuffed on the information. We'll see what we can't do. Maybe I will be truncating this a little bit. And on Will's side of things,
I was like, all right, I'm just going to eat all that.
he is rocking himself an Echo, which I'm glad to see. We've got a Zeta Leader, Countess, I believe, and one Delta Squadron. If we find out that one of these ships is missing, I will remove them. going to be getting things started here real soon. And I believe that Manaru has a mind link. Yes. Let's say they're doing some test rolling for initiative, which I guess it wouldn't be a test roll, but
All right, 90 minutes. We're starting now, guys.
time is starting now. So they're going to go and start putting down their stuff real soon.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to round 3 of the Austin 512 Squadron Charity Tournament, benefiting the Assist the Officer Foundation. Here at round 3, we've now taken the point values up to 120 points. So you're going to see some pretty substantial lists hit the table. This round is going up to 90 minutes long, which gives everyone a bit more time to decide exactly how the fight ends up. On the table this round, we have Will Eldridge at the top, running a rather nasty Imperial list consisting of a lot of Imperial Veterans upgrades. We have Echo with Recon Specialist, Fire Control System, Veteran Instincts, and the Advanced Cloaking Device. We have Zeta Leader with Adaptability. We have Countess Riyadh, one of the new Defender pilots from the Imperial Veterans Pack, recently released, running the TIE X7 title. For those of you not familiar with that one, TIE X7 gives the Defender an evade should they do any maneuver speed 3 or higher. And then we have Delta Squadron pilot, one of the classic Defenders, with the X7 title as well. Michael Percy, down on our bottom, is flying a Scum list, one that he's well known for around here. Michael's Scum list starts off with Manaru, who can transfer all of her tokens to a friendly target anywhere on the table, coming in with proton torpedoes, extra munitions, guidance chips, and the Atani Mind Link. We have Indru Sulak flying with Mind Link, cluster missiles, guidance chips. We have Paylob Godali flying the Hawk with a Mind Link, a blaster turret, the Moldy Crow title, a Scum cloaking device, and the Stygium particle accelerator, which will give that Hawk evade tokens every time it cloaks or decloaks. And then finally, rounding out the list is Talonbane Cobra, the much maligned Scum ace, running with an engine upgrade. So definitely an interesting list from Michael. One of the things that we missed last round, because it was on a table that we aren't covering, Paylob single-handedly took down Max's only remaining fighter on the table, Soontir Fel, decked out to the gills. But between Paylob's ability to cloak and to strip focus tokens, he dispatched Soontir quite handily. So a pretty spectacular turn of events for the scummiest of scum pilots, Paylob Godali. So here in the opening rounds, we see the Defenders coming on pretty strong with the Delta Squadron pilot moving fast, coming out the gate, gaining that free evade as well as the focus token. Manaroo banking into the fight and using that spectacular large base barrel roll, which can just hurl the ship across the table to avoid that asteroid. Here we see Will bringing the Countess into the fight. Again, another high-speed maneuver, which will gain that evade token and most likely a focus. Yep, there we go.
And just to chime in myself, I've got to say I'm happy to see the first scum list hitting the top tables, and it's one of the few non-Empire lists.
Well, and Michael is no stranger
to
certainly
not
playing some very creative and very nasty scum lists.
No, I actually saw and was very impressed by how he has his Palab outfitted in flying, and went out and bought a Hawk myself.
So there we already see the Mind Link in action with short maneuver by Palab, and then taking a focus, assigns a focus token to every Mind Link carrying member of Michael's squad. And there you can see the action economy really kicking in, since that's an assigned token, and Drew's able to take a focus action as well and come out of the gates with 2 focus tokens. This is a theme that you'll see repeated throughout Michael's use of this list.
Yeah, I know that Atani Mind Link is definitely an ability that has a lot of people, they're a little wary about it, about including it in their list, because of the obvious drawback is that, stress also gets transferred along the channel, and so having any surprise stress suddenly strike your entire list is definitely something that everyone's a little afraid of. In this list in particular, I would say it's one of those things where the more people that have the Mind Link, the better it gets, just because you're constantly just replicating focus across the board on everyone. What makes that even better is that Manaroo can then, at the start of the combat phase, trade off her Mind Link gained focus to someone else, so that they're sitting on 2 focus. And it definitely gives Scum one of what I would say is the better action economy generating cards in the game, really.
Agreed. And I think one of the more impressive things about combining Manaroo with the Atani Mind Link is that you can effectively create a focus out of thin air. So there we see the Moldy Crow title coming into effect. That retains focus tokens as long as they're not consumed, which means that as time goes by, Palab will continue to stack up those focus tokens for use in future turns.
One thing that's going to be a bit of an issue, though, as far as the Moldy Crow title is concerned with the Atani Mind Link, is that it only spreads if you don't already have a focus. So as far as Palab's concerned, he's good. He's not going to be getting any more.
That is correct, yeah. Palab will be benefiting from Manaroo's transfer.
Right.
That will allow him to continue to accumulate them, or any focus actions that he himself takes.
Yeah, it's definitely a very technical list when you start bringing in Manaroo and you start bringing in Atani Mind Links. I've tried to make a Scum Aces list work that's built on similar things, and it just becomes very technical, and honestly, it can get very tiring. I'm looking out to see if Michael starts to get maybe fatigued, even in a 4-round tournament.
Oh, absolutely agreed. This list is very similar to a TIE Swarm in that one of the things that becomes a factor, especially in longer tournaments, is just fatigue. Player fatigue is very real, and when you're dealing with the kind of technical nuance that this list thrives on, it can be very susceptible to missed opportunities or simply play mistakes that become easier and easier to make the longer a tournament goes. Now, this in contrast to Will Eldridge's list, which is a much more straightforward bruiser of a list. These 2 TIE Defenders on the table are not designed for subtlety. Both of these ships are intended to come in fast and furious, gain that action economy from their high-speed maneuvers, and then throw dice directly at their targets. There's very little subtlety to these fighters.
Oh, definitely not. They're one of the few Empire ships that are allowed to come in and be okay with taking some damage. They'll be a little bit more reckless and a little bit more aggressive, knowing that they can suffer some hits.
Oh yes, and I think that most players are starting to learn with the release of Veterans exactly how difficult it can be to destroy a TIE Defender, especially a Defender running the X7 title.
Right.
That evade, coupled with the 3 shields and 3 hull, makes them an incredibly hard target, and one that you are not likely to be able to PS kill or take off the table in the first round of combat.
They're both flying very aggressively as far as making this joust happen. At this point, they're flying literally right past each other. It's going to be interesting to see how this initial layout of arcs kind of comes out.
Yep, it would appear that Manaru's aggressive forward motion did secure a bump on Countess Riyadh here.
Countess is still going to get the evade token just for performing the maneuver, but it's not going to have any actions beyond that.
Yes, that's yet another really nice aspect to the TIE X7 title, is that it is an assigned token rather than an action, meaning that even if you're blocked, you're still going to take advantage of that token.
That being said, you can fully expect both of these defenders to never fly below a 3 unless it's an emergency. As far as the speed of their maneuvers.
Absolutely,
3,
and
4,
that
and 5.
definitely can make them more predictable. You generally know that they're going to attempt to go for those high-speed maneuvers, whether they're talking about a K-turn or possibly just one of those very wide sweeping 3 turns. So it's a bit easier to pin down exactly where an X7 defender is likely to end up.
But even then, even if you know that, most ships that need to be flying at the same speeds are going to be at an actual disadvantage trying to chase a defender. A lot of the times you'll actually find that you'll discover a lot about the ships that you fly as soon as you're trying to chase down the defender and you can't keep up.
Oh, sure. Yeah. They are undeniably some of the fastest fighters on the table, matched really only by Jumpmasters and by the YT-2400 in their ability to clear space on the table.
Which is ridiculous, keeping in mind that it's the small ship of those 3.
Yes, exactly.
So it looks like we're going to have some more bumping going on here. I believe that's going to be Talonbane making a bump, which is probably one of the last things that you really want, other than the fact that it's going to be awarding him a range 1 shot on Zeta Leader over there on the far left.
It does look like he's going to get that ideal Talonbane shot on Zeta Leader. For those unfamiliar with Talonbane, his pilot talent is to double the effect of his range 1 bonuses against targets, which means that at this close range, Talonbane is going to be throwing 6 dice at Zeta Leader, which is not a fun position to find yourself in, especially when you are as frail as a TIE fighter.
He'll actually only be throwing the 5 because he's got 3 base and then he gets the 2
You're
for
right,
the range combat
absolutely,
bonus.
you're right. 5
Now,
dice.
next wave, when he's flying around Fearlessness, he'll still be rolling the 5, but he'll be dealing 6.
True, very
It's going to be
true.
really good. So Michael moved his focus token from Manaru over onto Talonbane, and that's going to make that bump a whole lot more devastating for Will. The fact that Talonbane wasn't even punished for bumping.
Not at all. And that's yet another one of those excellent components here.
Oh,
So
that's a really good roll.
see the attack coming from
Was
Talonbane.
that is a full 5 hits with
serious
crits.
pile of hits right there.
4 hits and a crit. And that's going to be 2
2
evades.
evades.
So that's going to be 3 damage coming through, one of which is a crit on
That
Zeta
will
Leader.
very nearly
So
knock
that's good.
Zeta Leader off the
Zeta
table
Leader might
in
actually
one
just
attack.
be gone if it's a direct hit. It looks like it's not.
A blinded pilot.
pilot.
So Zeta Leader will not be returning fire this round and limps away from this fight with 1 hull remaining.
When you're Talonbane, you couldn't ask for anything better. Just get in,
No,
deal a
that is
ton of
about
damage
as-
at range 1, and no consequence for it.
Exactly. That is about as ideal a result as you can ask out of Talonbane.
Now, Talonbane might just barely be in arc on his back right with that Delta Squadron Defender, but I don't know if that's actually the case. We'll find out probably in a few shots
All right,
here.
so we have
More high
another
damage shots
coming
coming
here.
through. It looks like it's probably going to be from the Whisper.
Looks
or
like
the
Echo taking the shot. 2 hits.
Only 2 hits got through, 1 evade, so
One
1 gets
evade
through.
manages
And he
to-
spends an evade token, so Palov gets through with no damage.
So Palob, once again, the scummiest of scum, escaping damage from a range 1 shot from a Phantom. Not bad at all.
So I wasn't paying attention. Did Palov steal? Did he steal a token?
He did not, actually. He had no one nearby to steal one from.
Because that's really why he's included on the list here. Is
Oh,
that
yeah.
he's just pulling focuses, pulling evades as well, right? Off of,
So here we
There's-
have Indru firing at Countess Riyadh.
and I'm fairly sure he's going to be getting his title here, though rolling whiff.
Up, rolling and coming up blank. No hits on Riyadh this time around.
It's
So
like-
Riyadh
yep.
is engaging Palob. Looks like it's probably going to be a range 2 attack.
So something worth noting here about Will's list is that Echo and the Countess, and technically the Delta Squadron pilot, none of them have combat affecting abilities. They're all maneuvering focused.
True. So then we have 1 hit followed up by 2 evades from Palob. So once again, sneaking out with no damage. Weathering fire from a Phantom, a Defender, and yet still to come, one more Defender, and unscathed. So, pretty
This has
impressive
It's
display.
got to be discouraging if you're Will right now. Looks like Manaru is just making a lateral shot over on the Zeta leader. Looks like a hit's
Trying
coming
to take
through.
Zeta Leader off the table with one hit.
Right.
Let's see if Zeta Leader, without any tokens, can protect him.
4
Oh, yes.
evades.
Comes across with no problem.
And so that's what I'm talking about. So if I were Will right now, I would actually be kind of upset about that roll. Is seeing 4 evade results for just the one hit.
Oh,
Sounds like
sure.
overkill.
When you needed them earlier, absolutely. So here we see the Delta Squadron Defender firing with, looks like
We got
2
hit and
crits
2
and a hit.
crits. And we see at least 1 evade, spins a focus, 2 evades, and
there
3.
we have
so
3 evade
again,
results from a
no
spent
damage
focus.
comes through.
And once again, Paylob escapes with not a single damage taken after concentrated fire from a range 1 Defender, a range 1 Phantom, and a range 2 Defender.
That is just brutal, especially because Hawks aren't necessarily known for being this evasive or this durable.
Not at all.
They've only got the 1 evade die.
This really makes you wonder if we're not seeing Paylob becoming the Soontir equivalent for Scum, taking withering amounts of fire and just shrugging off every bit of it.
But that is the strength of the technical nature of this list. That's what you just saw is such strong action economy, had a focus for every roll, and didn't take a single point of damage for it.
And that Scum cloaking device absolutely is worth its weight in gold. So long as it doesn't break, it provides an incredible amount of defensive potential for Paylob, so that while he's not needed in the fight, his ability to remain cloaked but still steal focus tokens from enemy ships in the combat area is hugely beneficial to the rest of the ships in Michael's squadron.
One thing that Will's going to be keeping an eye out for is the fact that Michael's also packing ordnance, which we haven't seen any ordnance so far. Something that it's pretty easy to forget about once you get, a few rounds in. You're not keeping an eye on your opponent's equipment. Suddenly you got proton torpedoes coming right at you.
And I can personally attest, having matches against Michael where Indru's cluster missile attack has essentially cost me the game, having come in on a flank at a poor time for me, resulting in serious damage dealt to key ships. So that is definitely something that Will's going to need to keep an eye out for.
So that joust just in every point did not go to Will's favor. So it's a question of figuring out what he's going to do next. And with the brawler list, it's kind of just setting up the next joust.
Absolutely. Well, it's safe to assume that we're going to see K-turns from both the Delta Defender and from Countess Riyadh in red there. The question is, what can we expect to see from Echo and from Zeta Leader?
Well, Echo could be anywhere. It's not even worth predicting. Zeta Leader, that's a tricky one. You send Zeta Leader after whoever needs to die first. Honestly, Talonbane needs to die first. All of that heat was going on the Hawk, just because that was the most convenient, or that was the target that everyone had. But I don't know if that's going to be something that he's going to have an opportunity to do again.
Well, getting the Hawk off the table is definitely not a bad move on Will's part.
Against Michael specifically, definitely.
Yeah, the question is, how many rounds is it going to take him to do that, considering how much fire Paylob was just able to shrug off?
If Will has any more combat rounds like that, it's going to be maybe out of reach.
I agree. So there we see the 4K from the Delta Defender.
Right, which I know that some people maybe haven't been keeping up, haven't been playing in about a year or so. The Defenders are back on the tables because of the box that came out recently, the Imperial Veterans box. But the Defender dial, what makes it a little bit more unique is that it has an easier time K-turning than it does sharp turning, because its K-turn is white. And that's why it's known and easily predictable that's going to do it. Countess specifically, because Countess can turn any straight maneuver into a K-turn.
Absolutely, and that is incredibly beneficial to the platform. I mean, one of the most common criticisms that I think you hear leveled at defenders is that their 4K is incredibly predictable. And I don't think that anyone would dispute that it's predictable, but the issue I take is that having a predictable 4K really doesn't hurt the defender in the long run. Even if your opponent knows that 4K is coming, their ability to do an about face and actually maintain the same action economy that the defender can in a straight up fight following that is very low. There aren't many ships that can do that. Which means that as long as you can complete that 4K without getting blocked, whether it's predictable or not, it is absolutely worth it for that defender pilot to take that K turn.
Definitely. Like, it's one thing where it's predictable, but they're going to do it anyway, and you might still, even knowing that it's coming, not have what you need in order to handle it.
So here we see Countess Riyadh turning a 5 forward into a green 5K turn, which drops her quite nicely behind Paylob, who does a slow 1 forward.
It's definitely not the fastest ship out there. The cloaking device kind of hides that fact. Now, that is a lot of tokens just sitting on that Hawk, though.
Oh yeah, the focus tokens continue to stack up. Looks like we've taken an evade action as well. But again, this is going to be another nasty round of fire coming at Paylob. He's obviously the preferred target for Will. There are 2 defenders sporting target locks and other tokens to back him up.
That being said, we didn't see a decloak on Echo, probably for lack of a good decloak option, so Echo is probably not firing this turn.
Nope, it looks like Echo will stay hidden this turn, but that may potentially set up another good attack run coming up next turn. So there we see Endru taking a target lock on Countess Riyadh.
Mm-hmm. And Nadru is going to be in a weird position here, because
Here we see Echo.
Trying a maneuver.
Looks
Going to
like
be a
a
bump.
straight maneuver, bumping into his own ship.
And they're scooting the tokens out from underneath. Which certainly doesn't... It's not good to lose those actions, but you're cloaked. So there's some forgiveness there, and currently I don't think anything other than maybe a range 3 shot from Manaru is going to get through anyway, so I think that it's fine.
Well, the one thing he will want to keep an eye out for is, at any time, Paylob can opt to make use of that blaster turret, which is not a fun option to get engaged by when you don't have any defensive tokens.
Blaster turret range is 1 to 2 or just 1?
I believe it's 1 to 2. We may have to do a check on that.
I'll give that a check real quick. Let's see here. Fairly sure it's just the 1, but... it is 1 to 2. Spend 1 focus token to perform this attack. Very appropriate on Hawk with Moldy Crow. Against
It
1
is
ship,
a
even outside firing arc,
3-die
just goes 3
attack.
dice. So it's relatively powerful, but it consumes a token to use.
And when you're flying the Moldy Crow, spending a token,
They're not
really
hard to
not
come
going to
by.
slow you down at all.
And they're really not hard to come by on this list. It's a very good choice.
No, not at all. So there we see Talonbane coming around with a K turn, which is exactly what I'd expect from a dedicated jouster like Talonbane.
Yeah. It looks like they really just swap sides on the boards. They should really probably just walk
Yep.
around to the other sides at this point.
This is going to continue to be a battle of dice efficiency and just a general slugfest.
That being said, if we get beyond that point, definitely is going to be benefiting Michael more to see the jousting habits kind of break up a bit.
The action economy in this case hugely favors Michael, yes.
That being said, Will does have a good opportunity to put some damage through on the Hawk there. Michael does not have a lot of retaliation options.
No, a lot of these ships are quite out of ideal firing position. There we see a target lock passed from Manaru over to Countess Riyadh.
That doesn't make any sense. Shouldn't be able to pass a red target lock to an enemy ship.
Should be able to, no.
So I'm fairly sure that means something else.
Must have.
Unless you can. Does it say another ship or does it say another friendly ship? Because if
It's
you can,
another friendly ship.
That's what I was thinking, because it would be interesting to give focuses to your opponents. Yeah, this is another friendly ship, so that focus and target lock.
So the focus
Shouldn't be on the
went to
counters.
Talonbane. I'm not sure what the story is with the target lock.
Because that should also be on Talonbane.
So there we see 3 hits fired from Talonbane. Looks like those were shot at Zeta Leader. 2 evade results.
So it looks like just the 1 damage going through, unless he's got some other way to get that out. And if that's the case, that would be a dead Zeta Leader.
Waiting to see. No, it looks like looks like Zeta Leader evaded.
Maybe he had not taken as much hull damage as I thought earlier. So if
Well,
he,
I didn't see a damage card on the table.
and now all the shots are coming in on that Hawk.
So Zeta Leader now engaging.
So we've got ourselves
Looks like we have
hit and a crit.
a hit,
And they're not removing that other die, so it's probably 3 confirmations.
and there we
He's spinning the
see
evade.
an evade token from Paylob, losing 1 shield on Paylob there. So finally a hit registered against Paylob. Now down to only hull.
That being said, Michael, with we're at how many points now? 120?
120 points.
Definitely has a whole lot more beef on the table
Absolutely, absolutely.
between this Hawk. Kiraxes, which sport 5 health. It's definitely nothing to sniff at for a small ship. Far from a B-Wing, but you know.
So here
And
we see
Mandarin.
Paylob checking range. And Countess Riyadh engaging Paylob
Wow,
there with
4
4
hits.
natural hits. No modification needed. That is not what Paylob wants to see.
If he manages to roll none evades, oh, we got the 1
Well,
and
he
the
comes
2,
up with
so
1 evade
he's losing 2
and
health
can
there.
spend a focus. So that's 2 hull damage coming through to Paylob there.
This is what Will wanted last round.
Yes, this is exactly what Will needs to see, is to start really pushing that damage through and get some good successful attacks against Paylob.
Totally.
All right, so Paylob spending that focus token to activate his blaster turret.
And he's going to see if he can't take out that Zeta Leader. Odds are pretty good, I'd say. I see at least 1 hit, 2 hits.
Blaster turret engaging with
And he's spending a focus for what
2
looks to be...
hits. And what do we have
It
there?
looks like 1 evade.
I see
2
definite
evades on that
evade.
die, so it's probably a focus result. Nope, it's
Up,
just gone.
And that will do it for Zeta Leader, dispatched by Paylob's blaster turret.
All right. First ship of the game going down. It only took, what, 3 rounds this time?
3 rounds for our first casualty of the battle.
And it looks like Manaru wants to take that shot at Echo anyway. Which, certainly. It looks like it's going to be obstructed, though.
Does look like that'll be an obstructed shot
So
from
you're
Manaru.
taking
That's going to be a difficult
unmodified
shot.
ranged 3 shot obstructed against a cloaked Echo.
So that's 6 dice on Echo's defense
I-
against 2 attack dice coming from Manaru.
I fully expect to see Echo lose both of its shields here.
This is exactly the kind of time when the
Nope.
no, not this time.
Everything
This is
went
exactly the kind of time when
statistically
Phantoms
as
get hit the
expected.
hardest.
And we've got a defender shot coming
So
in
the
from behind
Delta
on Paladin.
Defender engaging Paylob, trying to finish that up this round, which would definitely be an advantageous result.
Caleb's out of tokens.
For
It's,
Will.
It's pretty
The
possible.
chances are good.
So we got the 2 hits. So
So we have 2 hits and a target
Yep.
lock spent, giving us 3 total hits
that
coming
means
from
that
the
at
Delta
least 1
Defender.
damage is going through.
I see 2 evades.
And he actually got all 3 of them.
All 3 evades.
Wow.
So Paylob, once again, through the luck of his evade dice, escaping getting finished off.
I'm guessing Delta Squadrons don't have EPTs, do they?
They do not.
I was gonna
No
say it'd be a
pilot
good time for
talents
a
the
crack
Delta
shot.
Squad. So here we move on to round 4. And again, I think we're just going to continue to see more brutal exchanges of fire between these two.
I can certainly appreciate that Talonbane is not part of the Mind Link. it definitely makes Michael a whole lot more willing to do things like put a K-turn on Talonbane. Because I was searching just to see if stress had been traded across the link yet, and I saw the one on Talonbane.
And that makes Talonbane an excellent candidate for Manaroo's power.
Yep.
Allowing him to receive a focus token even though he's not part of the Mind Link network. So I think you're dead on there.
Because we're on this round, we're going to see Talonbane back in the fight. We're probably going to see a shot from a Drew, though I don't think he's going to be able to activate his pilot ability off of it. And Palob, I imagine, is going to cloak. Seems like now's a good time to do that.
I think you're absolutely correct. We're going to see Michael become much more defensive with Palob. With only 2 hull remaining, he's going to need every trick in his little toolbox to try and keep that ship on the board. And considering the weight of dice that Will can still bring to bear, it absolutely is going to be essential that Palob steal those focus tokens wherever possible.
I definitely can see this match being a pretty long slugfest. And it's going to get down to just Echo. And they're going to have a really hard time finishing Echo off. I'm looking at Echo's equipment here. Rexspec Fire Control System. VI, which puts it up to 9, 7, 8. Echo normally flies at a 6, right? So
that would put Echo at an 8, correct.
Slower than Talonbane. Slower than... actually, slower than just Talonbane. Nadru would be flying at 7 here.
So here we can see a good decloak from Echo, really taking advantage of that 2-bank template as part of her decloak. Allows you to get into some incredibly sticky positions and really catch your opponent off guard.
It looks like it's
for
definitely
example,
gonna,
managing to end up in just the right spot to block Manaroo. Stopping Manaroo here is going to prevent her from generating an additional token to pass off potentially to Talonbane. So it could be beneficial here. While it's not going to shut down the actions of Michael's squad, it's certainly going to reduce its efficiency somewhat.
Yeah, essentially it means that someone else on the link is going to have to perform a focus.
Yep. And again, this is before Echo has even taken her maneuver, which could potentially put Echo in a good spot. Now, looking at where Echo's been positioned, I would expect to see a left hard turn. But with Manaroo moving into that position, we may very well just see this turn into another bottleneck.
It looks like since we're already scooting defenders forward, I mean, that had to have been intentional because he, knew that Countess was going to be moving first.
Oh, yeah.
So he just wanted to move that ship up slightly. And he gets the evade, but, nothing beyond that.
So well, and I think, when you look at the defenders' maneuver this round, you can very clearly see how that X7 title really does encourage defenders to move in more predictable fashions.
Certainly.
That 3-bank, a very predictable maneuver by the Delta defender. Granted, as I mentioned before, predictable is safe if you're moving into a position that isn't vulnerable to being blocked, which it wasn't in this case. So a solid maneuver, but certainly one that Michael can expect.
There's the focus. So Nadru is the one that's going to be giving up his action in order to activate the link. Now, honestly, if Echo is trying a hard left, which it looks like to be the case, and doesn't move at all, I'm going to be pretty happy with that. Mm-hmm. Having that just perfect range 1 shot right on Palob is going to guarantee that Hawk gets off the board.
Agreed. Even denied any actions, Echo will put some serious hurt on Palob at that kind of range.
Yep.
5 unmodified dice is not something you want to have thrown at you.
At the same time, same story happening to Michael's benefit, with Talonbane coming in right up behind those defenders. And it looks like he might have his pick of the litter on which one he wants to dump 5 dice into.
He very well might. Countess Riyadh does appear to be right on the cusp of range 1.
He's certainly going to be checking for it, though. I don't think that either have taken damage yet, so... Looks like Palob stole that focus token off of one of the defenders. Helped
No
himself
surprise
to it.
there.
And that also means that it kind of communicates which defender is going to be getting shot at.
Yep, and there we see Manaroo doing her best trick to create a focus token. Having received one from the MindLink network, she passed it to Palob. And Paylob, by virtue of receiving a focus token, generates yet another one for anyone on the network who doesn't already have one, securing a focus for Manaru.
That's a fantastic interaction. I'm not entirely sure if that's actually possible, but I recall reading something about that.
All right, so here we have Talonbane firing at Countess Riyadh at range 2, using his target lock to secure what would appear to be 3 hits. Riyadh defending, coming up with
2 focuses.
2 focuses, spending the evade and taking 2 shields worth of damage out of that attack. So
That was the Countess?
not a bad round of fire from Talonbane Cobra.
Not even a little bit. So I just looked it up, and it totally
that
is
was
possible.
3 shields, it looked like.
3
3
shields.
shields taken from Riyadh.
Well, Talonbane hasn't whiffed yet. He is definitely a high variant ship, and he's certainly prone to it.
He is absolutely earning his points in this game.
That is something that's maybe a little rare.
Yes, I think so. So I believe next up, here comes the range 1 unmodified shot from Echo. It looks like 3 hits
Hard to
on
complain
Paylob.
about that.
Up
Rerolls
at
for another
the
crit.
Rerolls.
So that's 4 damage threatening, and we've got, looks like, at least the 1 evade. He's going
We
to
have
spend a focus in order to probably make the other one an evade. Though he's showing some
Paylob
crits. Structural
taking
damage.
Structural damage.
So, and that's going to be him down to just the 1 health.
I'm impressed that Paylob survived that salvo.
It's not over yet. There's still
That
Countess
evade
Riyadh
die
coming through.
absolutely saved Paylob this round.
Yeah, at this point it is probably becoming just an instance where just barely surviving that makes him eat up 1 additional shot that could be going up against Manaru.
So here we see Countess Riyadh coming in with
2
2
damage
additional
to the 1
damage,
evade, and that should be
rolling 1
Paylob off the
evade.
board. Yep,
And
that is
that
a
will
dead
do it
Paylob.
for Paylob, now off the table, courtesy of Countess Riyadh.
So that means no more token stealing.
Not a good turn of events for Michael. He still has some decent firepower on the table, but Talonbane is going to struggle to keep those defenders in arc without taking withering return fire. And Manaru's offense just isn't up to the task to keep up with what the rest of these fighters are capable of doing. So this is going to start being an uphill battle for Michael.
I'm not seeing any successes there just yet, unless the one at the top of the screen there is an evade. They're treating it like it is. Nope, no, I just saw 1 shield token get moved off. So looks like that was a complete whiff. Though I'm not sure who fired. Was that Manaru's shot?
All right, looks like Echo being allowed a missed opportunity to take the cloak action there after Countess
Destroying
Riyadh's
Talon.
shot.
Yeah.
We still have Manaru pending a shot, as well as the Delta Defender. The question will be, who is Manaru going to engage? We see the Delta Defender attacking Manaru.
Looks like 2
No
damage
defense
going
results
through.
for Manaru, and without tokens, that's going to be 2 shields down from Manaru. And that brings us to the end of round 4. Going into round 5 here.
It's definitely benefiting Will. We learned between the streams last game that Paylob was flying around well over 30 points of value.
Absolutely, yeah. This was this was the right opening target for Will by far. And the fact that he was able to pin down and eliminate Paylob as quickly as he was is definitely going to make the rest of this fight easier for him.
I think the Drew is kind of being left out intentionally in order to see if it can't be a little bit forgotten about. That, or maybe it was just making the best of what his maneuvering options were at the time.
Yes, I think here Michael is really hoping to capitalize on Andrew getting that perfect flanked attack outside of range 2 of any of his friendly ships so that he can take advantage of his extra attack die pilot ability.
So in the position that we're in now, we've got both defenders probably about ready to do another K-turn. When you're thinking about where a defender's going to move, you kind of want to just be thinking at like the 3 to 5 range, and that zone in front of both of them is looking a little clogged right now. And obviously, Manaru's going to move before they get an opportunity to. But if things are going kind of how Michael anticipates, and it's not hard to anticipate where defenders want to be moving, he might be trying to make sure that Manaru's still in that space if he can.
Well, if I were in Will's shoes this round, I'd move Echo clear with a forward decloak, and I'd send my Delta defender just with a 1 bank to the left to try and put him in the way, maybe combine with a barrel roll, see if you can put him in the way of Manaru, and then send Countess Riyadh out with a green 5K turn to drop back around behind Manaru. That does still potentially leave the Delta defender threatened by Talonbane, but it puts Riyadh in a really nice spot to engage Manaru and further start to dismantle this efficiency network that she's the linchpin of.
Yeah, the main issue is that you don't want to leave Talonbane unaddressed. Right now he is in his zone. He is prepared to just keep dealing damage in increments of 5. And defenders are typically in a really good position to cover their butts, but with how things are looking at ahead of them, it's getting a whole lot more difficult. So it looks like instead he is just going to be trying to make his way out of there, but he's going to be colliding with himself at least once in order to do so. I don't think that Talonbane's going to be upset about that.
Yeah, that's an interesting and rather unexpected move on Will's part. I suppose this just goes to show you that you can get a block and potentially still get your evade token. So this could work out for him in the long run. And it looks like it does. He still manages to secure the bump on Manaru, having allowed Manaru to move even farther forward than she otherwise might have, and maintaining an evade token.
It's all good. I don't know if it was actually his original intent to have Echo end up where they eventually did. He was actually trying to snake it between Nidru and Manaru, but the spacing didn't work out, so he was kind of forced to come up with another one. Now, you are right on point with that 5K turn.
Yep, here we can see Countess Riyadh taking that green 5 straight, converting it into a K turn with her pilot ability. Again, that's another one of those pilot abilities that really can become worth its weight in gold if you can make proper use of it. Coming into that fight with a focus and an evade generated by the X7 title. That is a really good firing position for Riyadh engaging Manaru.
And we're just seeing that Z95 just slowly loop around. This is probably one of the big issues that Z95s really face, is that they're not about to be accused of being agile, despite their, small size and all that.
Oh, 100% agreed. I think that inadvertently or not, Will's ability to have essentially dodged Ndru's initial flanking approach has worked out hugely in his favor. That is a lot of potential burst damage from Ndru that simply hasn't been a factor in this game. And I think by the time it becomes a factor, it's just going to be too late for it to matter.
Yeah, at this point, you kind of effectively have to pretend like Nadru's just not even on the board right now. Like, he's just not coming into anyone's arcs, so he's not taking attention. He's not at risk of threatening anyone else, so you don't even have to maneuver around him. He's just out of the game. Now Talonbane's going to get another range 1 shot on a defender. In fact, he's seeing if he couldn't make it Countess, because Countess is the one taking damage.
To see if he could sneak into that gap for the range 1 attack against Riyadh, trying to finish off the damage that's already been done to her, but unable to complete that maneuver. It looks like he's stuck firing at the Delta Squadron pilot. Taking a target lock on Riyadh for his actions, setting him up for a future turn. Michael, I think we can expect Talonbane to bank into Riyadh and attempt to set up either a block or hopefully a follow-up shot.
That would be a good maneuver to take. Engine upgrade on Talonbane is actually something that's taken out of necessity, but it doesn't really complement his flying style very well. It makes him very good at chasing, makes him very good on the approach, but he kind of gets his one shot, and he flies so fast that he has to swoop back around
Very true.
in order to get another attempt at it. So he's probably going to take that swoop and use it to try and block.
Well, and this is why I think we've seen, well, here we see an attack from Talonbane.
And there's, 2 hits and a crit. Certainly not bad, but...
Bending those tokens, 2 hits and a crit.
And we've got a focus result there. And now it's just going to be 3 evade results, so no damage coming through.
All right, so the Countess, again, managing to escape any damage from Talonbane. Endrew with no shot remaining. Will picking his targets, firing at Manaroo. No surprise there, taking advantage of his range 1 position. Down a focus token, but I don't think with Manaroo's low relative defense that's going to slow him down all that much.
No, I mean, Manaroo is definitely the one you take down next. Without Manaroo, Talonbane's flying gets a whole
Only
lot more
getting
choked.
1 hit out of that roll.
And it looks like he may have even evaded the 1.
Well,
We
an
got our
unfortunate
next shot
turn
coming through.
for Will there, unable to capitalize on excellent positioning against Manaroo.
And 2 hits and a crit coming through. That's going to be threatening Riyadh from the looks of it. So that was probably a range 1 shot from Manaroo from behind. Looks like a crit's coming through. So
Manaroo-
1 damage maybe.
Manaroo delivering a critical hit to the Countess there. Not what Will wanted to see this round.
Not at all. I mean, at that point, the shot that Talonbane took and didn't deal any damage with is a whole lot easier to accept because it chewed up all of Riyadh's tokens. Having that follow-up shot from Manaroo available definitely helped not make Talonbane's 1 shot, wasted. Having said, it's really time to get Nadru back into the fight. That being said, but also, Echo looks like it's going to be making its own loop back around as well. Now, Echo, I think, maybe has more control over when it's ready to start shooting again.
Yes, agreed. And, Echo being as slippery a pilot as she is, can very easily use that decloak template to come back around and directly engage either Manaroo or Talonbane, potentially this turn.
I gotta say, both players have been navigating these rocks very well so far. It's been leading to some bumping and some traffic jams, but, in fact, so far today, 3 rounds, not a single person's gone over an asteroid yet.
Not once. Definitely a sign of some skilled players here at today's tournament. So going into round 6,
Michael's objective definitely needs to be figuring out that defender situation because he needs to kill that Phantom. Because if the Phantom is put up against just Nadru and just Talonbane, or potentially even less than that, it's definitely going to be a board very much in Will's control.
absolutely. And thus far, Echo having largely been ignored by Michael in favor of attempting to take out Countess Riyadh, who still continues to persist on the table even with all the fire thus far taken. Here we see another K-turn from the Delta Defender. Again, predictable, but exactly the kind of maneuver that Will needs this round.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Setting
he
him
can just do
into an
K-turns
excellent
forever.
firing position for either Talonbane or Manaroo.
So is Manaroo taking the disengage or the chase? Looks like it's the chase. Yeah, I mean, at this point, Echo has just been completely disengaged from the fight. Now, Manaroo can keep taking these long-range pot shots at him, but it seems like it's going to be very much about focusing on these defenders first, and that's going to be tough when they're still sitting on about 75% of their collective HP.
And yet again, another strong reason why defenders are making such a comeback these days. The buffs helped, but they have one of the best stat lines in the game, indisputably.
Oh yeah, like all 3s. It's also easy to remember because it's all 3s.
And when combined with the X7, that reliable defense really does start to show.
Do you see any of the upgrades that have been, announced that are coming out in the next wave really benefiting the defenders directly? Do you think there's anything that's going to be must-have to kind of further augment them, or do you think that they're just going to be kind of sitting on what they got from the defenders, Imp Vets box?
For the most part, I think they're going to remain where they are. The only upgrade that I've seen that really could serve as being useful to them is the collision detector with the Special Forces TIE expansion. But when you have to come up with something to put in that incredibly valuable modification slot, it's a really difficult decision to take something that augments a barrel roll or give yourself an additional 6 greens on your dial using the TIE Mark II upgrade. And at a difference of 1 point between 0 and 1, there's not a lot of expenditure there to make the decision for you.
It's very true. Is that coming in on the modification slot? I thought that was a sensor.
I believe oh no, you're correct. The collision detector is a systems upgrade. So yeah, that being the case, no, you're absolutely right. So then
so even less so then.
Even
defenders
less so,
are just going to be kind of as they are.
I think the defenders are essentially going to be left exactly where they are.
Certainly very effective. But at a point it's not at risk of happening anytime soon, but at some point their fly style is going to become well understood and maybe a little outdated.
Well, I mean, like I said, even with their predictable nature, the fact that their predictability doesn't hamper them,
right,
really doesn't work against them at all. I mean,
right.
The 4K that we've seen this turn from the Delta Squadron Defender was absolutely predictable, but you notice that it is an excellent firing position.
Yeah, he's got someone at
Manaroo
arc.
is in serious threat right now.
So it looks like our first shot's coming out, and it's just going to be up against Manaroo. Spinning that one focus early, because why not? And that was the shot from Echo.
Yep, so there we see Echo engaging Manaroo.
And Manaroo, took a damage? Does that sound right?
Yep.
Right.
Cluster missiles. So here is
Okay.
what Michael has been attempting to set up all along. Andrew is engaging Countess Riyadh with cluster missiles. It does not look like he's going to get his die bonus from his pilot skill. But even that said, cluster missiles fired with guidance chips can be a nasty combination to get hit by.
So he's spinning that focus for the first shot, and guidance chips, I imagine, is going to modify that other die unless it doesn't need modification.
So there we
That
see
does not look like a very good roll in response.
one evade.
That could be just the
And
count
that is
gone.
it for Riyadh. Cluster missiles, even in the first salvo.
It's hard
with
to
one
even feel
still
bad
to
about
come.
that. Like it's not wasted damage. You just confirmed a kill.
Absolutely not.
I was also going to point out it never came up because the Countess is dead now. That Michael used his boost on Talonbane to push him a little bit further out. Because we haven't actually mentioned yet that the other part of his pilot ability is that all of his range combat bonuses are doubled, including his range 3 defense. He gets 2 extra dice there too. So we got 1 crit coming through.
So there we see Manaroo once again rolling some hot dice and absolutely slamming home some brutal shots against Will's list. The Delta Defender returning fire here on a now tokenless Manaroo.
I will say that even when Manaroo in lists like these tends to go kind of tokenless because she's always handing her focuses off to other people,
And
it's
there we see
pretty easy
what
to
looks
expect.
like a hit and
Oh
a
wow,
crit.
yeah, and we don't have the focus spin, so just the crit going through.
And a critical hit delivered to Manaroo.
So things are getting a little bit rough for Manaroo. She's definitely down on the shield and probably down on the health. Manaroo can end up rolling pretty consistently, even without those tokens. Like, there's just 2 reds, but I've had situations where she is always rolling hits and always threatening with that 2 damage.
Yeah,
It's a
it's-
very, very large tie.
It's easy to discount a 2 attack die turret and think that you have nothing to fear, but if you're consistently getting 3 hits out of range 1 attacks from that measly little turret, it quickly turns into a threat. And that has certainly been Wells' experience this game. He's been hammered, 3 rounds consecutively now by 3 hits from Manaroo?
And it's probably working him down. I don't have an accurate read on what the situation is with that Delta Squadron pilot, but I don't believe that it's full health.
Now going into round 7.
Looks
see
like we're not...
Michael continuing to work on pushing this lead that he's edging out over Will. with Echo continuing to be the one real wild card on the table.
Yeah, the next thing that we really need to be keeping our eyes out for is that proton torpedo launch. See if that can't be sent out in an opportune time.
That is true. Thus far, Manaru not taking any advantage of her ordnance, not really having the range to take advantage of that ordnance.
But at the same time, also running out of time to take advantage of that ordnance. Manaru's not long for this world.
What's our time check?
35 minutes left on the clock here as we go into, once again, round 7. Manaru trying to survive concentrated fire from Will's list here. It looks like the Delta pilot has moved on, but we have yet to see where Echo ultimately will end up in relation to Manaru. Talonbane a bit out of position this round, and Indru, having spent his ordnance, becomes a bit less of a threat to Will's ships.
Certainly. And it looks like it might be another bump for Manaru. Every time that this happens, it's pretty unfortunate, especially because it just puts the responsibility on Indru to make sure that that link works. Because one of the two of them has to do it, and Indru probably would prefer to be throwing out target locks.
Agreed. And the Delta's in a nice position to potentially block Indru this round as well.
Which, I mean, you know, if they both bump and neither of them have shots on each other, and it's just a non-round, that's fine if you don't get your tokens.
Well, and I would argue that no combat this round actually favors Michael. It gives him that much more time to bring Talonbane back into position there at the top of the table.
Right, and Talonbane took that engine upgrade earlier.
And there we see it,
there's the other
bump
bump
against Indru.
So there's going to be next to no shots going on here. Michael engine upgrade boosted Talonbane further out in order to put himself into a range 3 shot defensively. But now he's kind of got to make that swoop that I was talking about. Which, you know, 1 sharp's certainly nice for doing it, but it just takes turns.
And I expect that we'll see potentially a boost here, although you will want to be careful that he doesn't push himself into range of Echo and take fire.
I have...
smartly checking for a target lock ahead of time.
And it looks like he got the target lock too, so they're already in range 3.
Yep.
One thing that I have run into before, or they're trying to make sure they're being real precise about it, is I have mistakenly boosted myself into range 3 shots before and promptly lost Talonbane in, you know, that range 3 shot that came at him later.
It is definitely something that you have to watch out for.
No shot is always better than 5 evade dice.
Yep, looks like he's taking his action to target lock the Delta Squadron Defender and staying outside of range of Echo, which I think is a very smart move to make.
Certainly. And it also looks like there is going to be some long-range firing going on between...
Yeah, so
between one
Indru
person to
attacking
another.
range 3 at a decloaked Echo.
Could be worse. And it looks like he's out of range 2 of Manaru too, so he is getting that extra die.
Actually, this is Echo taking the shot first.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because Echo's firing
So
at
what do
8,
we have
Indru at
here?
7.
I see what looks like at least 1 crit.
I see 2 crits, actually, and I saw 2 focus evades for focus results.
All right, so we've got a critical hit on the table
Looks
on
like
Indru.
a thruster control fire from what I saw. So Indru is getting down there in the health.
Shields are gone. Down to 1 hull remaining on Indru.
Which,
Not a huge loss for Michael. Indru at this point really has his most value as a blocker with his ordnance expended.
right, and, you know, just having that 1 health left is enough to request being shot at later, and he still gets to make his range 3 shot. Looks
So
like
here
this can be
Indru
the hit.
returns fire. I see 1 hit.
And I see 2
and
evades,
2 evades.
so there's nothing going to be
So
happening
no matter
there.
what,
Right.
Echo is going to escape that particular fire exchange unscathed.
That also means that the cloak goes up. Let's see. A whiffed shot from Manaru,
Yep.
and that's
Manaru
going to be
taking a
it.
shot at the Delta Defender, unable to land a hit this round, paying back those incredibly hot dice results from the past 3 rounds.
Sometimes you got to cool off.
Spending the target lock. I see at least 1 crit in those results. And a couple of evades there.
So it looks like he might have still gotten away with it.
Yep, looks like the Delta managed to escape without damage once again.
I'm certainly looking forward to those vectored thrusters for Talonbane. I think it's going to, one, make him a little bit cheaper, because it's going to be 2 points less, and two, he's not going to be in these sorts of situations. If he had vectored thrusters and was barrel rolling around instead of boosting, he would still be in that fight.
And there's always a lot of value in a hard turn followed by a barrel roll. That's a really good way to point your fighter around.
You'll make a whole lot of friends doing that. So tiles are going back down. It looks like things have kind of just turned into two different fronts here, as Will's remaining two ships are kind of getting split up from each other. Honestly, it's kind of up to Michael to decide the pacing of how this one's going to go. We can certainly expect... Oh, I would say that predictable K-turn out of the defender might happen, but it looks like it would probably skirt the rock.
Yes, he's definitely taking the chance that he might pass over the rock on that K-turn.
So we may see something different out of him if he doesn't want to risk it. Now, that being said, as far as I know, that defender still hasn't taken damage yet, so he can certainly afford it. And he still get the evade for going over the rock, too.
Yeah, I think you're right. He has yet to take any fire. And the same said for Echo, who's still sitting unscathed from this fight.
Yeah, Talonbane needs to get into that fight quick in order to, help out before Nadru pops and Manaroo shortly after. One thing that sometimes doesn't get a lot of attention given to it is asteroid placement, as far as being a very carefully and strategically decided thing. The board that we're looking at right now, as far as how these asteroids are placed, really does benefit defenders. You can kind of see, if you visualize it, it's very neat parallel and perpendicular lines. You can almost cut 4 quadrants, just a straight lines right through these asteroids, and that's something that a defender really likes, flying in straight lines.
It absolutely is. That's definitely something when I'm flying defenders that I'm looking to do, is create straight, long slashing lines with the debris, which allows the defenders to really take advantage of those long turns. Those are, as I often repeat to myself when flying defenders, you got to remember to boom and zoom with defenders. They hit and they move on and they come back again from a different direction. Attempting to actually turn your guns around and just keep your cannons pointed toward your target for the duration of the fight really isn't going to go in your favor when you're flying a defender. It is much better to take that upfront engagement, take advantage of your unique ability to come back around and attack again with action economy. Speaking of, there we see the Jumpmaster doing something very similar, making a Segnor's loop and still being able to take an action once it's completed. Another one of those excellent components of the Jumpmaster's very solid dial.
Yeah, and Michael took a focus too. He's looking for an opportunity to get those proton torpedoes out.
Yep. Make an excellent plan from Michael there, looking to boost his damage output as much as possible. Here we see like Echo hard turning in directly.
I don't know if Echo's going to have an ability to get out of that arc.
Guns.
I think Echo's about to start eating some proton torps.
Yeah, it's hard to say. He's really close to range 1 there, which is going to put him inside of range.
That's true.
Talonbane whipping around with a K-turn. Not quite what I expected out of Talonbane this turn.
It's true.
He spent a number of turns bringing Talonbane back into the fight, only to turn him around outside of the fight as soon as he gets there. I think he may have expected Echo to pursue Indru on this round, which didn't happen.
Yeah, like with something that once you see how everyone's been moved that looks so bizarre, he was definitely overthinking what Echo was going to do. But to be fair, Echo could be anywhere.
Yes, and
So
trying
we're
to pin Echo
seeing-
down is incredibly difficult.
We're seeing a whole host of damage coming
So
in.
there we see
Manaru
Echo
there.
coming in with
Five damage
full
to the
hits
one evade.
to one evade,
So that's gonna
driving
be-
4
that's gonna be
damage home
Manaru.
on Manaru, and that will do it. Manaru shot down.
That's one way to avoid the proton torpedoes.
Yep, right here in round 8. Once again, the Phantom proving how incredibly dangerous it can be. You cannot underestimate a Phantom.
Yeah, it's very fortunate for Will too, because if Manaru had managed to survive with just that one hit point, that would have been, well, that was a range 1 shot, so it would have been proton torpedoes. But
Yep. And at this point, Michael's action efficiency network has been completely destroyed. That aspect of his list is now no longer functional, which means that both major key components of his list are off the table, basically bringing this down to a straight dogfight. And in this particular dogfight, Will's fighters are much, much better suited to this than what Michael has left on the table.
I think that Talonbane has the capacity to do it, but it would probably require Will to make mistakes. And that's not a position that you really want to be in, is dependent on your opponent not playing at their top efficiency.
And here we can see Will doing what Echo does best, taking another off-angle decloak and setting up for what I'm guessing would be a 3-bank maneuver to chase down Talonbane. And here we see the defender finally getting out of that 4K mess he's been stuck in and getting into the fight. I believe that was a 3-turn, so Will may want to make sure he remembers his evade token here. There we see a barrel roll setting up for next turn. And if I had to guess, this next setup is once again going to be for another 3 hard turn to the left to go chase down either of Michael's ships as they withdraw from the fight.
And at this point, it looks like there is definitely some setting up for a chase and a lot of running away. And I think that both players are going to be kind of creating some distance and figuring out how they want to reapproach. Now, Talonbane's stress is going to be a little bit tricky for giving Michael that sort of control over the next couple of rounds, because clearing stress on a Kirex is not easy. It's got some 1-bank maneuvers that it can perform, which is not going to get it far enough from where it wants to go, and it can do, I think, 1 or 2 straight, but that's not very fast either.
Yeah, well, let's see. It looks like a 2-bank off to the right, moving through the asteroids. That's definitely going to get Talonbane potentially out of any fire this round. And
that'll
the engine
definitely get him
upgrade's
out of
definitely
work.
going to ensure that happens. So there, Talonbane boosts clear of the engagement. I'm assuming that with this extra space, Michael's going to take that opportunity to K-turn both fighters and then reapproach once that stress has been cleared.
Yeah, even though Drew's not quite as close to the top of the board as it might look on the stream, we've lost probably about a ship base's worth of space from the top and bottom edges just with how the camera's set up. So a K-turn is definitely not even a risk here as far as accidentally losing a ship or anything along those lines.
Well, the onus here is definitely on Will to try and move fast enough, if possible, to capitalize on these K-turns that are pretty much guaranteed to happen. Although I think at this point, Echo is the only one who might potentially be able to get into a range 3 firing position.
Yeah, being turned sideways is definitely not a good way to be prepared to turn and chase. This is not where a defender thrives. It flies fast, but it flies fast forward. Hey, you know, 3 sharp's a 3 sharp, but
So there we see Will settling on his maneuvers, the Delta Defender opening us up. Coming out with a 2 left turn on the Defender, generating a stress from that maneuver, and no evade token this round, but no surprise there.
right.
Biggest difficulty he's going to suffer there is that he's either going to have to go and do a 2 forward only or maintain that stress going into the next round. There we see the K turn from Andrew as expected.
Yeah.
And a 3 turn from Echo, attempting to close range.
Yeah, like this kind of, now that we're, I mean, looking at them just kind of passing back and forth through the asteroids, like, if I were Michael and I was saying, all right, well, I'm going to have to deal with 2 defenders, I would have set up triangles. I would have put the asteroids in such a way where these lanes, if you flew straight through them, there was no way to actually make your way through the entire field just going forward.
Absolutely.
Forcing
And
those defenders
that is
to
definitely
turn.
the way you want to approach locking defenders in using your obstacle placement. So there we see the K turn from Talonbane as well. Michael now positioning himself for another joust against Will's List.
Yeah, he called that really well. I mean, I wasn't necessarily thinking that he wouldn't do it, but I also, at the same time, had no idea what his plan was actually going to be.
Well, and you know, Michael finds himself in a difficult position here. He's down on points, which means that he absolutely must engage or simply let the game go to time and lose. So with that being the case, he has no choice but to come about and charge back into Will's List and see if he can at least knock one of these ships off the table before time expires.
If he keeps the 2 separated, Nadru gets his pilot skill bonus, and they both do have a lot of damage output. They just can't handle much punishment. Now, Talonbane's going to be able to fire before Echo does and before the Delta Squadron pilot, but unless they can punch that Phantom out of the air, it's Michael Will.
Now, what's going to be interesting here is what Will does with Echo. He has a perfectly viable option to decloak to Echo's right and set up a maneuver that may give him an off-arc shot against Talonbane, which could potentially be incredibly valuable, letting him engage and get off on Talonbane's side before their first meeting engagement even starts up again.
And it's a really tricky spot for the Talonbane as far as maneuvering goes, too, because he can certainly see that maneuver coming, and he could try to fly slow in order to compensate for it. In fact, he's probably going to be flying slow just to clear that stress.
Well, there we go. The right side decloak.
The issue, though, is that Talonbane does not like to be in range 2. It's a terrible place for him to be. He wants to either be getting his damage bonus or his evade bonus, but being in range 2 makes him a very mediocre ship.
Interesting. So here we see
They're just picking Talonbane.
Will doubling down on Talonbane, opting to retain that stress and see if he can set up a bit of a kill zone here.
Yeah, I mean, flying with the stress, you still get those evades.
Oh, yeah. So Andrew doing as expected, doing a nice slow forward maneuver to see what things are going to look like, clearing that stress and setting himself up to continue the approach.
I totally expect Talonbane to do the same thing. You're just going to fly slow, account for both situations, but risk being in range 2.
I do as well.
As a product
I do
of
as well.
both.
So here we see Echo set up behind a rock and then opting for actions rather than barrel rolling out to clear his line of shot. And Talonbane, again, just as you expected, taking a slower maneuver forward to clear that stress, get an action.
Right.
He has wandered into range of Echo here, but that is potentially range 3, which means he's going to be doubling his defense bonus, just as you mentioned.
And he's going to be enjoying a nice obscurity bonus too, but he's not very likely to get any damage in on Echo. Now he does get a shot before Echo cloaks, which is always nice, but I would be surprised if I saw damage go through on either side.
Well, and it would be completely worth it to Will at this point to take that shot, even on a total miss. Getting out, interesting. So
forward.
Here comes Talonbane going for the action to really push that shot.
He might have moved from 3 to 1, and that's definitely the goal there. There's no way that he would just give up a token.
Well, what we see here is Michael
that is
banking on that
range
range
2.
1 attack, which he didn't get. Really trying to get offensive against Echo here and take him off the table first.
There's going to be some punishment for that.
So here we see Talonbane opening up with 3 attack dice through the obstruction. Looks like we have
2 successes.
at least 1 hit on the table.
And I see at least 1 evade.
And at least 1 evade from Echo.
Looks like maybe.
Looks like Echo did lose a shield out of that exchange. But 1 shield
is not
going
going
to be enough
enough.
potentially to make this worthwhile. We have yet to see exactly what kind of punishment Echo is going to return. to Talonbane here. We see
That is
Echo
a whole lot of focus results. There's a
really
focus
capitalizing
suspend.
on that action. Good
That's 4 shots
call
coming
on
through.
Will, spending
Only 1 evade.
Yep, spending his action for that, giving him 4 hits to 1 evade. Absolutely devastating Talonbane with the return fire. It's going to knock his shields offline and 2 of his hull,
That misread is pretty
leaving
deadly.
Talonbane just limping away from this particular engagement.
Even-
And Echo is now perfectly positioned to decloak and work his way into Talonbane's flank with almost no repercussions.
Even if Talonbane had been able to boost forward into range 1, you probably wanted to have a focus token available
Yep.
at range 3 instead. But it's certainly easier to say that after the event. And it's, always difficult to tell which one of the two is the better decision. Very clear at this point. And hopefully, or at least it's very fortunate that the defender wasn't ready to capitalize on that even further.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that maneuver from the defender certainly helped Will. Going into round 9 here, we've got 15 minutes left on the board for this phase of the tournament. And again, this time around, I'm fully expecting to see Echo decloak out, potentially to the right, and come back around on Talonbane's flank. We may very well see the Delta defender try to act as a blocker here. There is the decloak to the right. We'll see if the Delta defender doesn't maneuver himself into a position to block up Talonbane's attempt at an escape.
Talonbane's in a pretty harsh position here. Talonbane's getting pincered.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, there we go. So rather than going for the block, Will's going for the 4K to continue to set up that kill box. If Echo doesn't get the shot, then
maybe
it's
defender
very
will.
likely that the Delta will.
Talonbane does have his full dial available to him for what he's going to get up to. But what's on his dial maybe isn't giving him a host of what he might need in this particular scenario.
Checking for target lock on the Delta defender as Andrew comes in. No lock, opting for a focus. And here comes Echo's maneuver. Doing a one turn, probably a very smart call by Will. We'll see where Talonbane ends up, but this may very well create an excellent kill box for Talonbane to stumble into. The only question still left is whether that boost gets him clear.
Looks like he might be vouching for a 4 or 5K. It is the 5K.
Oh, that
is going to be a dead Talonbane.
That is going to very likely end in Talonbane getting shot down. Yeah, with the stress and no action going up against 2 fully prepared high attack die fighters, this is looking pretty bad for Talonbane.
Yeah, he's getting another unmodified range 2 shot.
So
and
coming out,
hit.
range 2 unmodified, 1 hit from Talonbane.
Looks
evaded
like spin a focus,
using a focus.
So nothing happened there. Now, Will's dice could just fail on him. Statistically, it's not looking very good.
So here comes Echo returning fire at range 2.
Yeah, we got a hit and 2 focuses. He's still
Spending
got a
the
focus
target
token
lock
available.
and the focus, driving another 4 hits through on Talonbane.
That is Talonbane off
There
the
is
board.
no way for Talonbane to absorb all that fire, and that will do it for Talonbane.
I'm not sure if this is a product of, the fatigue due to the technical nature of the list, or good flying. This is actually one that I'd like to maybe go back and rewatch a couple times just to kind of study the moves, but it looked like it kind of got a little out of hand. Look at all those green dice.
That is a lot of defense.
Yeah, Nadru is definitely not going to be able to punch anything through. On the bright side, Nadru always is going to get its bonus dice from here on out. But
That is true.
I don't think that that's going to be the thing that's really changing the dynamic of this game. I wouldn't expect Nadru to punch through a full health defender.
No, at this point, just like you mentioned in our past matches, I'm not one to normally call these early, but I think we've reached a conclusion to this particular match, barring absolutely absurd dice odds on Nadru's part. There's just no good way for him to climb back from this disadvantage.
Part of the issue is that Nadru just spent so long out of the game. Like, Nadru's not had many strong shots. Maybe like in that opening joust, Nadru had a good shot. Since then, he's taken 2 shots from what I can tell, and they've both been at range 3.
Yes, yes.
And just not having the squad tight enough in order to keep Nadru present this whole time has probably been pretty damaging as far as his ability to take control during these brawls.
Well, and like we mentioned earlier, I think, it's hard to say whether that was intentional by Will or not, but the simple fact that he was able to avoid Nadru's initial flank approach up the right side of the table really saved him a lot of grief.
Certainly.
Intentional or not, that's how it played out, and it very much worked out in Will's favor. And Nadru spent the majority of the rest of the game off target, simply maneuvering back into the fight on the right side or on the left side of the table.
Yeah, now there's a bump there too.
So here we see the Delta bumping up Nadru and hopefully bringing Echo just right forward into a nice firing position, which is exactly what he's done.
Yep, this is just some very effective closing of the noose here. It's going to be a range 1 shot with focus.
Absolutely have to give Will credit for these particular maneuvers. A very skilled block by the Delta Squadron pilot, allowing Echo to try and close out this game with a range 1 shot on an already damaged Nadru with 1 hull remaining. I think we basically got this one in the bag.
Oh yeah, that's going to be 4 hits.
And that is
1
it
evade,
for
and there's the
Nadru.
handshake.
Will taking the victory, sweeping the table with a Delta Squadron Defender and Echo both still intact with no damage on either ship. A great game by both players, but Will just edging it out with that quick dispatch of Paylob, and then the absolute determination that he demonstrated in chasing down and eliminating Manaroo to finish dismantling that action network, I think was absolutely the right call on Will's part.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that too, is that this, essentially the brawl lasted long enough and Will's ships were certainly prepared for it, and Michael's list a little bit more dependent on synergy between all of the ships, so as soon as he started losing that ground, he started to see an exponential decrease in the momentum of his list as more and more of that synergy got broken up. Whereas Will was kind of just fighting at a static capacity that just dropped down by the number of points of the ships that get blown off the board.
Absolutely true. That is a very good point. And watching, if we wanted to talk about point values of efficiencies in the list, I think you're totally correct that every single ship that Michael lost from his list was worth far more than the sum of its parts to his list. And a dramatic decrease in his overall combat efficiency every time a ship dropped off the table.
On the bright side, we're going to be moving real quickly. That was the last match of that round, so we're probably going to be going right into the next one in a few moments here.
Well, thank you again. That was the end of round 3 of the Austin Charity Tournament here at Dragon's Lair, hosted by 512 Squadron and benefiting the Assist the Officer Foundation. We will be back with you shortly for the final round of the Escalation Tournament, round 4, coming in at 120 minutes and 150 points. Thanks for joining us.